Okay, welcome to the Details podcast. Usually come in a little more enthused and like we're just both so shell shocked right now.
I'm trying to figure this out.
So it is Monday, 3:17 p.m. So timestamp that. We were just about to start recording. I can't even talk right now. Recording, and this Patrick Mahomes news breaks out. So James, lay out the details. What we have so far.
All we've seen so far is that the Chiefs have agreed to a 10-year additional contract. That's 10 years on top of the already 2 remaining that he has. So that would keep him as a quarterback of the Chiefs until the year 2031, where we're all probably dead anyways.
Yeah, exactly, because of coronavirus.
And this is easily going to be the richest contract in NFL history. I mean, I think the largest quarterback one you said was Russell Wilson's for a total of 140, I believe, and he's making a 35 average on a year. Dude, by the math on this one, I think he's closer to 300 million than he is to 200.
That's insane. 300 million for a quarterback.
And I wouldn't commit to anybody. I'm not committing to anybody.
Are you saying you have trust issues?
I'm not committed to anybody for a decade.
Commitment issues?
That's my instant thought on this is like, I don't know how. That's insane. The longest quarterback deal until this point was Matt Ryan for 5 years. And right now, even in today's day and age, you could look back on that contract at that time and say it was a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Matt Ryan used to be good, but after 5 years, things have changed.
The irony of all this is we just got off the anniversary of Bobby Bonilla, who is still getting paid by the Mets. And is like the longest contract in like sports history right now. Because I just Googled that and that was the first thing that came up and I forgot like that was a thing. But just like, I mean, these are all baseball players. Like Mike Trout has a 12-year contract. Alvarez has a 5-year left on something, I guess. Bryce Harper, 13 years. Stanton, 13 years. We've never seen anything like this in football.
The longest before this has been the 8-year to Calvin Johnson that we all know didn't work out because he retired a year or two early. Mm-hmm. And then the Buffalo Bills gave Mario Williams a 6-year, which was more than Matt Ryan's 5. That's the 3 biggest ones in the past little while. So, dude, to jump to a 10... Now, I guess, okay, like, initially when you're breaking this down, right, like, if you're thinking about it, I would hope that their upstairs would understand that they could, maybe they see with a 10-year, they can offload and onload certain years so they can help out their own cap room, which I'm hoping is what they're trying to do. As long as Pat Mahomes isn't going anywhere, what does he care, right? Like, that'd be my pitch, too.
Yeah.
Like, stay as long as you want, we'll pay you whatever, but we just got to kind of mix and match. But right away, I'd be horribly worried about retaining free agents right now. If you're an up-and-coming receiver that just won a Super Bowl on the team with Pat Mahomes, now your worth just went down by an exponential amount because we can't sign a Tyreek Hill that's worth a certain amount anymore. So
whose price has obviously gone up since post Super Bowl as well, right?
And with that being said, though, if everything is going to be right with Pat Mahomes and over 12 years, let's say he has 3 rings, I think that's worth it, right? Is that a win? Yeah,
so like right now, his resume looks like Super Bowl champ, MVP, 2018 MVP, 2-time Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro, 50 touchdowns in one season, which was like absurd in its own right?
Stupid.
First quarterback with 3 10-point comebacks in the postseason. Like he's turned into this Brady Breeze-esque where if you're down, even Russell Wilson to that extent, if you're down, you've always got a shot. And he's only 24 years old. But he just signed for a decade. Like you put that in context, that's crazy, right? But you're right. How do you justify that number? Is it 2? Is it 3 Super Bowls?
That's what I mean, and that's the thing. I guess you've already won 1, so right away you can't piss your fan base off too much. Listen, this in their mind is the right idea, and I get looking long term. I would always look long term for a quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but long term to me is 4 years. That, in my consideration, a long time is 4 years, or 5 years is forever.
Right.
10 years, it feels like they're just like, man, we haven't had success in a long time. Let's just fucking grab onto this one and not let go of it.
And we also just talked about, before we hit the record button, is that he suffered a dislocated kneecap in week 7. Now, he had a miracle sort of a comeback, right? Because people thought like 3 weeks, there's no way. But they talk about his anatomy and how it's like unhuman-like, right? So, I mean, he does have the ability to cover, but he does play a mobile style of quarterback, right? Yes,
and I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers' career, man, he's had bumps and bruises his whole time too, because they're very similar play styles of guys. And man, dude, I'm still the guy that sits in the camp where I don't know if his arm lasts 10 years.
Yeah, Especially the way he throws too, right? He's got a very like slingshot sort of arm, right? Man. He's doing the no look passes.
That's probably the first thing to go for him from me. I would assume something happens to that arm in the next 5 years. But I mean, man, we could be completely wrong. And maybe he wins 6 Super Bowls out of 10, and maybe he's the best player ever.
I think the key is, and I mean, you and I are hitting refresh here, trying to figure out the numbers here, and I think it'll be the guaranteed money, right? Like that's the most important thing, right? Like at what point do the Chiefs are able to get out of that contract, right? How much are they actually clinging on to?
But I don't know contracts enough, but from what I'm aware of, the more guaranteed money, the more you can fluctuate the cap room. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that double-edged sword, like you're saying, right? Like they got to find that happy medium where they're okay giving up that certain amount because they can't handcuff themselves. We've seen this with why the Patriots were so successful for so long. Mm-hmm. Why, like, it's very clear this handcuffs you.
Right.
This is interesting.
Well, this is where the Cousins deal kind of bites, Minnesota in the ass because there's so much guaranteed money involved. Cousins. Like the contract, Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And so, when he signed that deal, it was like, oh my God, he's getting this much money, but maybe they'll be able to get out. But no, they've given him so much guaranteed money that they're now committed and locked into Kirk Cousins, right? So that will be really interesting to see how much they're tied to. You know what's really interesting about all this? Is what this does for Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott now. Because you got to imagine Jerry Jones is kind of hitting the panic button because now there's a market set and Dak is probably going to get the money that he's seeking now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because a lot of people think that the reason Dak has been holding out for so long, and the reason not the Patriots, but the Cowboys and Dak have been going back and forth, is they kind of been waiting to see what Deshaun Watson was going to get because that would end up dictating what Dak Prescott would get.
And I know that that's the case. It's abysmal to me that you have to compare everything all the time. Mm-hmm. When you look at this Texans organization, they're going to fuck this up.
Right.
Why would you base that off of that?
Billy B to do that, right?
Exactly. It seems, man, this Dak thing, he's got some cojones.
Yeah.
And he must have been told something that we don't know about because he must think that there's another team out there that's willing to pay him $40 million at the drop of a hat. Uh-huh. Because this is astonishing to me. I don't think he's been nearly successful to do what he's doing.
No.
And his commitments and the numbers he wants are near Russell Wilson. And that's a guy that's won a Super Bowl and been to Super Bowl multiple times.
Right.
Like this is just with so much less too. This is an insane little carousel we've had in this offseason with everyone's landing marks, right? You see, like, we're going to have guys that are going to have better production that you don't even know of.
Right.
Some of these people are going to make such huge numbers.
Well, the interesting thing about this, too, is we are not entirely sure that we're going to get a season next year. And even if we do with no fans, the cap is going to have to be adjusted next year. And so, the Chiefs in the next couple of years, like the immediate couple of years, could be screwed up because they've tied all this money to them, right?
100%, man. That's the coronavirus has definitely left a lot of teams at a very scared point, man. Like you talk about money in the UFC. This is why they haven't used Conor McGregor yet. Mm-hmm. Ticket sales is a lot, dude. Yeah. It's almost always 40%.
Yeah.
Like at your very baseline.
That minimum, and concessions alone, right?
And 40% is not a large number when you think about it. 40% of your total revenue on a season, dude. Mm-hmm. That's billions.
Right.
Like that's insane. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very interesting because if this cap room switches and flips and stuff, these teams are going to be so much more handcuffed than they already are. And a team like the Cowboys with potential elsewhere is going to find themselves at a complete halt with Dak at too much money in 5 years.
And you've got to also think Andy Reid has probably only got another 2 or 3 years left in him, and
don't have 10 of them.
Definitely doesn't have 10 of them. And so you got to imagine that a lot of Patrick's success, like given his God-given abilities and what he can do, a lot of it has to tie back to Andy Reid as well. It's not like Bill Belichick and Tom Brady over the course of a decade too, right?
I would totally agree with you on that. I think Andy Reid doesn't get enough credit for what he's done at all with this guy. Mm-hmm. And like a 10-year, again, it's like I don't think right away this doesn't feel like you're fully thinking about your situation to me.
Yeah.
And like I'm trying not to go bad on it, right? We haven't seen any numbers yet. We haven't seen what happens, but my initial theory is that this is rushed. This seems rushed. This seems forced.
Because I imagine, I'm trying to find Travis Kelce's numbers and how long he's 30 years old right now. Yeah. He's probably due for a decent payday. So you can't imagine that they'll be able to afford to bring him back at some point, right?
Man, Tyreek Hill is going to be due for a payday as well. I believe defensively, you're gonna find yourselves into some incredible issues too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to say that it's kind of shook the world is kind of an understatement because I'm just like constantly refreshing and everyone is just gifts and means of cash and money. Vince McMahon's of the world are coming out. David Trinero, who was on this podcast 2 or 3 episodes ago, he has a great tweet. That sure is a whole bunch of ketchup money, because you know how much Patrick Mahomes loves ketchup. So shout out to David for that tweet. But yeah, I assume this is great, because I've always wanted to kind of do an emergency podcast with you. So this is kind of cool that this has happened.
Like, all right, this is insane.
Is it crazy that last week Cam Newton got one of the dog shit contracts of the year, and then Patrick Mahomes gets all of this money?
Dude, 10 years.
12 years in total, like you said, right?
Has a team ever been good for a 10-year span?
I mean,
like, let's say top of the, like, you know what I mean? Top 4 team for 10 years. The Patriots.
The Patriots are the only ones that come to mind,
but even
right?
still, they've had years where they weren't necessarily, like, you know, lethal or whatever that case is.
So a lot of people, I'm reading an article right now.
Damn.
Will this be the NFL's first $400 million deal? So even more than 300, because he might command command the number around 40 million per year.
I'm trying to break down this math, right? Russell Wilson's making 35 a year, right? Mm-hmm. Was his deal for 4 years?
Something like that.
And that was a total of 140.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's got to be 300 plus. I would definitely assume. Now I don't know how much is going to be incentivized or how much is an signing bonus or whatever, but this guy is going to make a number that
it was a 4-year contract. You were right. 85.6 million.
He will not make. No one's going to make a contract close to this.
No. I mean, especially in today's times, right? Economically, right? You even look at the last couple of Super Bowls and the teams that have won, like those teams never had the highest paid quarterback, right? I mean,
I would imagine Big Ben, the last time even he was there, he didn't have that kind of contract he does now.
Right. And I'd mentioned before, the Ravens had Joe Flacco, but he got paid after that. You basically paid for your Super Bowl after you got your quarterback. You'd mentioned Jared Goff, right? He got his big payday and he hasn't been the same since either.
Right. It's a very tough thing. And I think there's one, like, the mental part about it, you know, having that looming thing in the locker room where you're this like multi-gazillion dollar man. I imagine that's probably kind of awkward at certain components, you know, and if you're having a bad day, maybe that just means that much more, or that many more eyes are just out on you. But I will have to admit, man, what we know about Pat Mahomes so far, that kind of personality and character type looks like it's something to stay. Yeah. He seems very level-headed.
He's a great ambassador for the game. He's someone that you want to build your image around, right? Especially being a black athlete, like, that will definitely help the NFL going forward as well, right?
I mean, apart from his voice sounding like absolute shit.
Like Kermit?
Other than that, the guy's got everything, I think. I'm rooting for him. I hope this 10-year deal works out, but holy fuck, that's insane to me.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to revisit this conversation in a week's time once we get the numbers finalized. 5 years' time. And who knows, maybe when we reach the 45-minute hour mark on this podcast, we'll be able to come full circle and actually give you the numbers. But congratulations, Patrick Mahomes, stand-up guy. Like I said, you can tell that the league's really making a push to make him the face, and it's great that he's kind of involved with LeBron with the social justice initiatives too. So it's been a good year for Patrick Mahomes, to say the least.
Well, dude, this like. If you weren't the face of the NFL yesterday, you are now. Mm-hmm. You know, that's just kind of how it goes. You're the highest paid guy that come off the Super Bowl and the MVP. So I'm hoping he can take up in this like kind of position. Right. You know, I think he's our next Tom Brady for a little while.
Yeah, and you said it perfect. Like, if it couldn't happen to a better guy, right? Because I think consensus, everyone loves him, and he's earned it, right? Like, he's really flipped the league and all. And I mean, because of guys like him, right? We've seen like the Lamar Jacksons of the world sort of flourish and thrive based on the style of play and whatnot. So, Also, man, kudos to him for wanting to play on the same team for 10 fucking years. Right, and you don't see that today.
That's the newest. That's the most amazing part about it, I think.
Right. Yeah. No. Kudos to KC for making him fall in love with the city. So, yeah, not the way that I expected this podcast to start. I really wanted to brag about the fact that I got to see Hamilton and I really enjoyed it. But I'll take Patrick Mahomes instead. But yeah, I hope you had a good weekend. But yeah, I don't like. How do I even segue? I wanted to talk a lot about basketball. We've obviously got a lot more news coming to the forefront with basketball. First game is on July 30th. Players will start to enter the bubble tomorrow and Wednesday. And what is interesting is the Raptors have been the only team in Orlando and kind of got a head start on everyone else, which is great. So we're nearly. I didn't even realize this till I read the physical print, but we've been away from basketball for 5 months now. Like, how fast has that gone by? right? Put that in perspective.
Woo.
Halfway through the year, 5 months without basketball. The NBA has outlined a plan for its players to travel in the next couple of days. They have 3 options. The first option is a private charter, right? Some of them are rich enough to do that. You can do it by car. I can't imagine that would be too much fun. Or you can go commercial and take the chance of traveling with other people. Now, if you're going to do private or by car, you have to at least take two tests, and they both have to come out negative. If you do commercial, you have to take it 3 times before you can get together with your team, which is interesting. And up to this point, 7 teams have had to shut down their practice facilities. The latest being the Kings yesterday, but the Bucks, the Heat, the Clippers, Nuggets, Suns, and the Nets also had to shut down camp to quarantine before they all head to Orlando. So I don't know if you have any insight into any of that. But we did say that we were going to definitely get some positive tests, especially leading up to it. So I'm sure that's no surprise to neither one of us. Notable players that are not going to go: Wilson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan for the Nets, Bradley for the Lakers, who got replaced by J.R. Smith, and we talked about that last week. Oladipo for the Pacers, which will definitely hurt them. Cephalosha, but he got replaced by Luke Mubamute, if I'm saying that right.
Yep.
So Ben, he's familiar with the Rockets, so that should be an easy fix. Ariza for Portland, which is interesting, and then Cauley Stein for the Mavs. So a lot of news in the last couple of days. But James, today I want to talk about some of the teams that have the most to gain and the least to gain. I do want to talk about this 8th place spot for the West, though. So
yes,
right now the Grizzlies hold a 3.5 game lead on Portland, New Orleans, and Sacramento. They all trail by 3.5 games. So those are the 3 teams that trail 3.5. Now the rule is that if there are 4 or fewer games separating the 8-9 seed, those teams have a play-in tournament. So, for example, if Memphis, New Orleans, and Portland are all within 3 games, under that 4-game span, they all play in a mini play tournament to play the Lakers. So you basically get a chance at LeBron to get into the playoffs. The Memphis Grizzlies' final 5 games are against playoff teams, so their road is a little tough. They have Toronto, Boston, Milwaukee on that schedule. The Pelicans' final 6 games are against teams with losing records. So that's interesting because we know that Adam Silver really wants Zion in the playoffs.
Not only Adam Silver, but the entire planet.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no secret, right? Yeah. So they also have a big game against the Grizzlies on August 3rd. So that'll be circled on a lot of people's calendars, I'm sure. Pelicans have won 53% of their games with Zion on the lineup. Portland is interesting because they get a healthy Nurkic and Zach Collins back, but they do lose Ariza on the perimeter, so that'll be a huge loss for them. And all of Portland's games are currently against teams holding a playoff spot, including Boston, Houston, Clippers, and Nuggets. So I guess my question for you, just out of the West, is who would you like to see in that 8th spot, and who do you see end up in that 8th spot?
I want Portland in the 8th spot over New Orleans, and I think the best team, like out of anyone to get a shot in LA in 7 games, I think Damian Lillard can take that thing down. I genuinely believe that team can beat them. Nurkic and Collins is a nice pickup. The underlying part to that is like they're not necessarily good defensively. So matchup wise, you're gonna have a tough time kind of handling Zion, even trying to get play in game, right? Even Jonas Valanciunas could probably cause some problems for Portland. So I don't like. It's going to rely a ton on Dame and CJ McCollum early, right away, often, like it always has. That's never been a coincidence or a confusing statement. But they just really, really need to hit stride instantly. I think where a team like New Orleans, I feel a lot more comfortable probably putting money down on that 8-game warm up because you just have guys that have been playing for longer.
Right. This is a team that was in the Western Conference Finals last year.
Right, and it's just I don't know. Like Zion, I think. He's going to come out and, again, shock everyone by how athletic he is and surprise everybody.
Dude, he already has. Have you seen how chiseled he is?
Yeah, I mean, it's just... He's the best athlete right now, right? So that's very clear. And I think down low, this Portland team is going to have a tough time kind of defending these guys. So that might be their defining moment. But I'm not betting against Dame, dude. This guy's just been absolutely cold-blooded. And for even them to have 29 wins with the team that he has is stupid, in my opinion.
Right. No, I think each team presents an interesting case, right? Like Portland, I think, is the best suited and the most prepared to play them.
Yes.
But you make a great point that Nurkic and Zach liabilities on defense, but also they haven't picked up a basketball in a long time, right?
80's averaging 40 a game in that series.
Yeah, exactly. So he's definitely going to be chewing them out. With the Pelicans, I mean, with the matchups we've seen with the Lakers and the Pelicans, you've seen LeBron being able to get that mismatch and absolutely chew up Drew Holiday in the post, right? And I can't imagine it'd be any different, right, if they played in the playoffs.
And man, like, again, we sometimes we forget about the past, right? But when LeBron was cool with the trade to the Lakers, part of that in his mind was, I don't care if any of these guys guard me in a playoff series. That was like, part of the deal.
Right.
So the Josh Hart, he's good. LeBron knows, like LeBron knows who he's going to go up against. He's going to get the matchups he wants against that team. He knows those guys through and through.
Right. And then Memphis obviously is kind of an interesting team, just given the makeup of their team. I think they do have some guys, man. Right? Like they have Jonas, they have DeLon Wright, they have Jaren Jackson Jr., they have. Obviously, can't have this conversation with talking about Morant, right? With even given his time off, right? I think that would be a more entertaining match, but I just think their lack in experience would kill them in the end of that, right?
No way Memphis gets in over Portland or New Orleans, in my opinion.
But what is interesting about those three teams is not having to go and play in LA as well, right? And I think Dame would be able to take advantage of something like that, not having to play in a hostile environment like that.
I gambled twice so far this year on basketball games, like on two Portland games, both of which Dame scored over 45 points and wins. Like this guy, man, I don't know, he doesn't give a shit. And this is a perfect. There's some people that this tournament style is so at home for them. I think,
right?
Like just not any fans. We're just hooping. Like Pat Beverly. This is going to be the best basketball that Pat Beverly plays, I think, in his career.
Right, because especially because what he says will even stretch out even further, right? It'll hurt around the world.
Some of these guys want this part, right? So it's going to be interesting, man. It's so tough to speculate on these things because we're talking about guys stopping for 5 months and trying to get back into a season form.
Right.
I have no clue.
Yeah, and I think when we have the most gain and most to lose, we'll definitely be able to delve a little deeper into that. But there's no real advantage, right?
I'm exactly with you on that. Right. I don't think that there actually is an advantage anywhere here.
Right. Out east, Milwaukee basically lock at 1. Yeah. The Raptors are pretty much good at 2, but there is a chance for the Celtics to catch them. But what's interesting to me is I think a lot of teams will really be trying to avoid that 4 to 5 seed, right? Because nobody wants to play Milwaukee in that first round. 4.5 games separate the 3rd and the 6th seed. Boston looks pretty good at 3, and of their 8 matches, they're against winning teams as well. So Milwaukee, Miami, Toronto. Now Philly will most likely end up in that 4th, 5th seed. But I have mentioned on this podcast before, and if you look at the numbers, Philly's actually the best home team. They have the best home record, so that might hurt them a lot too, right? And chemistry is obviously no secret with that team, given the personalities that they have on the team and trying to find their identity.
So are you looking at the 4 or 5 potential matchup of Miami and Philly, a little Jimmy Butler and Philly? Or
well, and I think we all want to see that too, right? Especially based on their previous meeting as well, right?
Oof. That would be fun.
Well, and we're going to talk about teams that have the most to lose, but for Philly, like that first round matchup is going to be really important because if they lose in the first round, that team's dismantled, right?
And I also think too that we're not putting enough. What you just said, the first round to me is the absolute most important round because again, we're only 8 games back. Dude, they're 8. You're not loose. Right. Like you know what? You need another. You almost want. Like series 1 to go to 7. You know what I mean?
You want to get as many games in as possible. That's
a good point. Dub and get 15 under your belt.
Right.
Now you're confident going into. There's going to be upsets first round. Right. I would promise you that almost half are going to be upset because like these guys aren't going to have the flow of the game yet.
Right. Yeah, you make a good point because we always talk about is it beneficial? Like, is it good to be sweeping teams in the first, second round because you've all that time off? And then you always see teams struggling to come out of the gate because they've had all this time off, right? This is even worse because you don't even have that many games prior to that.
The worst thing you can happen right now is be a Milwaukee seed, get like the lock after 3 games, sweep like series 1, and then have like Boston or Toronto. Right. It's like, oh fuck, we've played 5 games. Like we're not ready for these guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, man, I think Toronto and Boston stay in the same situation. I think 1 through 3 is probably the same.
Locked.
I hope 1 through 4 is the same. I love Miami there. I think kind of Philly and Indiana swap and so on and so forth. The East is normally pretty locked, considered. I don't know. You're not worried about Orlando beating Milwaukee, are you?
No, not at all.
I think like the 1 through 3, we're going to get pretty consistent. I would imagine Boston gets Indiana at 6, and then we'll have the fun matchup of Miami, Philly at 4 or 5. But
hopefully, fingers crossed. Because I you know what, I do think Indiana will drop because of the loss of Oladipo, but
they will.
They've also played way better than I like. 39-26 record without Oladipo is pretty impressive, all things considering, right?
But when I think when you get your leader like that back and kind of have some positive outcome, and then he's gone, it's another wrench in the whole mix here, right?
Right.
Like it's a very, very weird chemistry kind of style of team now. I mean, unluckily, Toronto and Milwaukee probably have not good matchups because they're probably going to sweep their team.
Yeah, most likely. Well, I mean, we can always count on the Raptors to lose their first game, so I wouldn't go that far.
And you know what? Spencer Dinwiddie's always good for a 50-point
right,
game.
Exactly.
Also, maybe they steal one, but no, the East is going to be very, very interesting in my opinion. I don't know. This Milwaukee team...
Well, there's another team that's gonna, not benefit from the fact that they're not being able to play at home, right? They were a great road team, but they also won a huge chunk of their games. They were 28-3 at home, and that Milwaukee crowd is hostile, and it's really beneficial to that team, right?
I want to do a bit of an exercise here, okay? What teams in the playoffs on both sides of the conferences do you feel have already played their best basketball?
Houston.
Oh.
Yes. Now, see, Houston, I'm worried about is they had a lot of momentum going to this stretch run, and we saw the best version of Russell Westbrook, but this pause and lapse is the concerning part for me.
But no, and dude, that's interesting you say that, because I was going to go the opposite side of you. Because now, remember, okay, this is the best analogy.
This is why we podcast.
This is my best analogy for this, and it's the stupidest analogy, and I know you'll like it. But so for me, I played football, and then I played basketball in high school. Now, the first couple weeks of basketball, your boy's jumper wasn't there, because it took a little while.
Right.
So, like, what you normally do when you don't have the jumper, you just try and find athletic ways to get to the rim. And if you play like a team that can't shoot, and you're more athletic, you just score more.
Mm-hmm.
So, going to that point, I could see Russell Westbrook having potentially the best portion of his career in this stretch, because no one's really going to have a ton of chemistry or figuring it. He's just going to athletically get to the rim.
Yeah. While I think that they've played their best basketball, I also think that they are the biggest dark horse in all of this, right? Because I think every team doesn't want to play them based on their style of play, right?
Right.
Because it could take teams a couple of weeks, a couple of games to get in their defensive schemes. But the one thing that Houston can definitely do is score on you. So 100%. If they just come out and their offense is clicking, that might be, really beneficial to them.
100%.
Yeah.
But man, when I look at the West here, like...
Best basketball.
I think the Lakers have played their best basketball. Mm-hmm. I think Memphis has played their best basketball. I think Denver's played their best basketball.
You just took it out right out of my mouth.
And I think Oklahoma City has played their best basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
But when you come to Utah, Houston, Dallas, and the Clippers, Dallas and the Clippers, that 2-7 thing, I don't think we've spoken enough about that already. That might be the best basketball matchup as far as two quality teams. Like, if we have a healthy Luka Doncic and a healthy KP and an entire healthy Clippers roster, that's fucking dynamite.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Dynamite.
Right.
That Dallas team is still such a well-structured team. And when you have a guy that can completely take over a game and have a triple-double 30-point performance with a sidekick that has a double-double on average, they're a dangerous team, man. If this Clippers team doesn't get it figured out right away, but again, they have not played their best basketball. They haven't had anybody healthy.
So you kind of jumped the gun here because,
But you see what I'm getting to.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're getting to, because I'm on my list of teams to gain and teams most to lose. The teams to gain, number one was the Mavs, because they could vault as high as 4, right? They can go as high as 4, 5, 6 range, right? So they definitely have a lot of wiggle room, and their schedule's fairly friendly for the most part. And like you said, they're a young team. They're rested. The only thing that hurts them is they've lost Dwight Powell now and Willie Cauley-Stein, right? Who's his backup. So they will be small, and that will mean that KP is going to have to extend to that 5 spot, which I don't know if that's going to be a good thing.
Defending Anthony Davis is going to be a problem. Defending Nikola Jokic is going to be a problem. But I think until then, you match up really well, actually, without Powell. I'm actually a massive Dwight Powell guy, and he's a Canadian. He's a Canadian dude, but that's an athletic 4 that rebounds and plays defense that does not give enough credit.
He does everything that KP doesn't have to do, right? That's the thing. Because now you need KP to rebound more with Dwight Powell. But I said the Mavs. Do you have another team that you think has the most to gain?
Well, man, I I'm not. If I saw Houston raise a championship, I wouldn't be blackout shocked. And I'm just because we've only seen such a small sample size, and now we have this no explanation weird tournament where we don't know where it's small sample size. This could be enough for us to see. Like this is. But no, Dallas for me. Right away from the get-go, they got to show up right away because they can't be at 7. But if they climb and somehow found Utah or Denver or Oklahoma City in a matchup, I think they get through 1. And then I think you have a way better, a huge different baseline of all your teams after round 1.
Right.
Because I think we'll have a better analysis of, okay, those guys fit right back in, right where they were. These guys are not the same team anymore.
Right.
This guy's not the same guy anymore, whatever, right?
And it's going to be very similar to like the NHL, right? Like you always want to pick the team that has the momentum going in, right? The Blues are the perfect example of that. So I have a couple of things here, and you can add your 2 cents. So the Heat could go as high as the 3rd seed and avoid the Bucks, so they have a lot to gain from this. OKC. 16 games above 500. If you told me that, I would have never believed at the beginning of the year. We were both pretty down on that team. We didn't know what version of Chris Paul we get. They're 2.5 games behind Denver in that division. And the other person that like has a lot to gain is Billy Donovan, right?
Billy Donovan, yes.
Like he could build a case for himself as a coach of the year in just these 8 games, right? And how far he takes this team to the playoffs. Like one of my most to lose is Nick Nurse because Nick Nurse has kind of been the unequivocal favorite to win this thing, but in this 8-game mini season that we're about to have, if OKC can shoot themselves to, I don't know what's the highest they could get to, but if they could get a high seed, like again, this is not a team that we were expecting in the playoffs, let alone. Yeah, no,
that's kind of been that weird team in the whole season, right? Where you almost still don't even know, or you're not sure what they are still. I think we know Shai Gilgeous-Alexander,
that's good.
future All-Star, I would say even next year probably.
Yeah.
I hope he keeps learning from Chris Paul, but man, I don't know. Do you really I understand the point, but do you really think that after 5 months this team's going to be able to get back that mojo?
Well, again, this list is the most to gain, right? Who can benefit the most from this, right? And I think they're a team, and especially given all the assets that they have accumulated over the offseason, right?
Man,
a deep playoff push would be great for them.
I would fire back that a way more positive outcome could be Utah fucking figuring it out. Mike Conley coming up and lighting it up, them making a Western Conference push, like having a year where they're still 41-23. Not that bad, but all you hear is negative all year long. Basically, they can't really do this, they can't do that. Not a bad record. You're in the mix.
I think they have everything, but the thing that hurts them is losing Bogdanovich, right?
Yes.
That's a 20-point score off the bench for you. He shoots over 40% from the 3, so that's 20 points you have to now figure out.
But their biggest problem from the get-go was the fact that their superstars weren't being superstars.
Yeah.
So that's got to be fixed right away.
Absolutely. And also, forget the overlooming... what do you want to call it? The cloud over Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert as well, right?
Yeah.
Obviously a little breakout, right? Given Gobert's antics and his behavior with touching the mics and not believing coronavirus exists.
Yes. I hope someone has a good sign, someone somewhere involved outside of the Orlando Center has a good sign that we can get a good laugh out of that. But
so my other 4 teams, the Raptors, I think the Raptors have the most to gain because everyone wrote them off. Dennis Scott didn't even have them in the playoffs, right? So if they get knocked out in the first round, everyone will say, okay, so this is exactly what we're expecting. So I don't want to see them lose the first round, but if they lose in the second round, people will be like, this is more than we expected from this Raptors team. So anything more than the second round would be a huge plus for this Raptors team.
I would almost go on the limb and say that I don't see the Eastern Conference being represented by anyone other than Boston or Toronto.
Oh, not even the Bucks, eh?
No, I don't think the Bucks have a chance. I'm going to put money against the Bucks right away.
Amazing.
Like I really don't believe that they're going to be able to come back and be to where they were. They've played their best basketball on that team. Getting back to that point, and this is what I talk about with the Boston Bruins and NHL hockey as well. When you have a 10-point lead over everyone in the conference, and you just show up with this like aura, like we've been winning, we're gonna keep winning. That's how we do these things. That isn't made overnight.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can just hop back into that seat. And man, dude. The more I look at the Raptors, again, I'm a huge Marc Gasol fan. I've always been a huge Marc Gasol supporter at Memphis. I thought he was one, if not the best big man in the NBA. That guy still has something in him.
Right. Well,
he's another gear, dude.
Not physically because he's lost a lot of weight, but he's still got something in him.
I think he has another don't fucking forget about me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when you talk about defensive matchups, Giannis does not want to see his ass.
Right.
Does not want to see his ass.
No. And I think the Raptors have a huge advantage here because they got the championship DNA, right?
Yep.
These guys know each other inside and out. And again, they're already down in Orlando working together. And I think there's just a level of trust there because you've already done it once together. And I think, again, this time off is probably the best thing that could have happened to Raptors.
Man,
Raptors.
They were playing a year ago right now. They were in the finals a year ago.
Right.
Like, they didn't get as much rest as everybody else. This rest in between, where the Raptors never even had a game where they had their true starting five, is a huge blessing.
Right, that's a great point too. I never thought about that. Right,
These guys went deep into the playoffs. They went deep as possibly could. What was it, game 6?
Yeah,
6 games in the NBA Finals. You almost had August. You got another 5 months now, in a point of the season where you hadn't actually put your full roster on the court at once, dude. They're in the best situation possible.
I totally agree with you. Yeah,
with the best coach in the NBA.
With the yeah. Well, we like to think the best coach in the NBA, right? So most to lose. Now, this list is a little bit longer for me. I think the most obvious one is the Lakers, right? The Lakers go all in on this season, gave up a ton
I don't agree with you at all.
Okay, so can I finish my point? So Lakers all in on this season, gave up a ton of assets to get AD, right? Obviously giving up Alonzo, Ingram, all those young guys. No Avery Bradley, so now you're replaced by J.R. Smith. They were obviously playing for home court advantage, right? And that's stripped away from them. And there's no promises in the coming seasons, right? Like, there's a potential super team coming with Giannis, right, in 2021. Injuries to LeBron and AD are a thing, right? LeBron's getting older. AD's injury history is clear. So if the Lakers don't win it all, right, that window's now shrinked completely.
I don't think it's shrink completely. I think I don't like your tone when we're talking about Anthony Davis. I don't like your tone when we're talking about Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis is still a top 5 NBA basketball player, hands down.
And I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that at all. I just think that, if they don't win it this year, they've built so much momentum to get to the point that they are, right? LeBron was building this MVP campaign towards the end of the season. And if they're the team, it's championship or bust for them.
I think it's more to the credit of what you've seen LeBron be able to do this year at this point in his career. But to say that they moved, so the assets they move, right? Let's talk about it. Picks and such, we don't give a fuck about because LeBron was going to move them anyways. Yeah. Don't matter. And again, LeBron's been here for 3 more years. Right?
Right.
So I'm not all in, because the Anthony Davis move, to me, that's an exponential superstar. And I think you do give up what you got to give up to get that guy. Ingram wasn't going to fit with Bron. We knew that. Lonzo wasn't going to fit with Bron. We knew that too. Josh Hart was the only guy that I would like to keep too. But again, you got to lose some shit sometimes. You don't look at that roster right now, even with J.R. Smith now especially, and say, this was what I envisioned to give LeBron to win the title here in LA. So I think we're still going to get to that point. And man, the way that guys flip-flop in this league, how many 1-year contracts we just signed in the offseason?
Right.
They can get a third dude or they can get 3 other producers.
Right.
Like, they're going to find a way to have that happen. And they have the best tandem of 2 basketball players on the same team.
Right. The second one is I have the Bucks. Second best home record. Giannis is a free agent in 2021. He's only 25. So anything short of a finals appearance would be a bust for this Milwaukee team. And again, Milwaukee, very similar to Toronto, is not an attractive free agent destination.
Way less. Hold up. Toronto was way more attractive than Milwaukee.
100%. Yeah. So, for Milwaukee, this is a huge risk, right?
Yes,
like, this is a real kick in the pants if they're not able to, get to the finals this year.
I'm with you, man. I think they're not going to lose first round, but I think they're out in the second, and I think Giannis walks pretty early.
Clippers, short-term championship, right? With Kawhi and George only signing 3-year deals, and they have a player option for that third. So you've almost lost this, this campaign that you're trying to build for these two. Like, this is your home and this is where you should stay. They're another team that gave up a lot of assets, a lot of them to OKC. So if they're not able to get a championship in this first year, there's something to lose. But the funny thing is it's 2 different stories, because I think the Clippers have the most to lose, but Kawhi has the most to gain, because if he wins in this shortened season, in this bubble season, he's looked at as a legend, right? This assassin.
Kawhi with another ring this year gets him in the conversation of the best. And you could say I'm jumping the gun, but I don't give a shit.
No, I think you're completely right.
You initially have to talk about how good he is compared to LeBron in their careers, and then we have to start matching up numbers and stuff, which LeBron will win because he played for longer and all. But again, if Kawhi still plays for another 4 or 5 more years and wins 3 more rings, like, this guy is a fucking animal.
Legend.
Dude.
Absolutely.
Animal.
Yeah, 3 different teams, 3 different championships, and potentially 3 different finals MVPs.
And then how he plays, man.
Yeah.
he'll stop your best player, and then he'll score on your best defender, and he'll do that for 48 minutes.
Right. If there is a player that has benefited the most from this style of not having to engage and have conversations and deal with press, it's definitely Kawhi Leonard, because he's in a bunker somewhere.
We talk about the Raptors benefit from that, and the Clippers having that same vein. It's got to be the exact same conversation. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both have had long seasons over the past few while. Paul George not so much because they lose in the first round as OKC.
Right.
Unfinished business.
But then, Indiana Pacers, right? Yeah.
But like those guys get hurt a lot too, and that team having this kind of time, who knows? I don't know what they're doing if everyone's sneaking around practicing, right?
Right. Well, there's a huge rumor that the Lakers have been doing it for a long time, right?
But you'd have to imagine that Houston would, because they've been the first lifted state forever, right? 100%. So I would imagine that Houston has had too. But
so great segue, because I have the Rockets as the next one. They have the most loose because they can move as low as 7, right? They can move down to 7, have a possible first round matchup with the Clippers. But I also think that would be a great matchup for them as well, right? I think they're the best one. It would definitely be a fun one for us, right? This Rockets team has no meaningful cap space or assets, right? They've obviously gone all in on this year, especially bringing in Westbrook. And but like I said, they're perfectly constructed to be a good underdog here, especially with no home court as well, right?
Even to piggyback on top of you, Daryl Morey just a summer ago caused that huge disruption with China, right? Potentially harming the salary cap. Right. This is a man that's on the hot seat right now. Right. Like, I think for him, if it's not a deep run, he's definitely... And I think that's why he went all in and said, I'm just going to do everything I can to kind of not only save my job, but... I'm probably likely to get fired this year, right? So why not go all in? I don't know about you, but when Russell Westbrook popped up on my screen going to Houston, I thought that was kind of like a Hail Mary move.
Yeah.
Oh,
it definitely was.
And I get it. Sometimes you're in that position, man. Like that's how it goes. He knows he's getting fired. He's like, fuck it, I got to do something.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to be here in 2 years anyway.
Exactly. So why not, right?
No, I get it.
Like, this is not the burning house I have to deal with after anyways, right?
That's exactly it.
Sixers most to lose. We talked about that. Right now in the position to play the Celtics, which would not be favorable for them. And we said if they lose in the first round, got to imagine there's going to be a huge shakeup. Brett Brown will probably get fired. We'll probably finally see Embiid and Simmons split at some point. You got to figure out what you're going to do with Tobias Harris.
You keep Simmons.
I think you keep Simmons.
Right?
Most definitely. But I don't know. I feel like that Philly crowd is more enamored to Embiid right now. So that is an interesting conversation. But I'm totally in the same boat with you. You don't trade someone like Simmons away. So the Wizards are an interesting one. 5.5 games back, right? So right now they're in the lottery. So if they get themselves in the playoffs, they take themselves out of it. Like, is that something that they want to do? So maintain or lose that lottery pick. And is it also worth having Bradley Beal get hurt?
Right.
In this small amount of time.
And we think Beal's gone, no?
Did he not just sign an extension?
He may have, but I believe he's going to get traded.
I think...
From rumors around the league of what I've been hearing.
Yeah, he's the first name that comes up in all the trade talks, right?
And I think Braun has him kind of targeted.
Right, that's I've definitely read that rumor for sure.
Dude, and that's kind of where I mean. Like,
I just don't know what kind of guy Bradley Beal is. Like, is he the type of guy that will give John Wall another go? Give one more shot at dark? Because then I think he looks like a great guy, and then he has all the leverage to say, like, I want to play for these teams specifically. Right? I've given you all this time. I gave you another shot with John Wall, and it didn't work out. Now send me to LA.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and maybe with John Wall trying to get Boogie there would help that like maneuver for Washington. Maybe they feel more comfortable doing that kind of thing. But how long do you want to keep like a perennial scorer on a shitty team? Yeah, it's tough for me.
I mean, you see what Devin Booker with the Suns right now.
So right? That's the exact kind of player comparison I'm thinking about, because everyone wants to jump on a guy and say like, oh, you quit on your squad. Like, look at Dame, he plays for Portland. Okay, chill. Damian's top 5. He's a top 5 NBA player on all facets, not just scoring. Right. Bradley Beal just scores. Devin Booker scores. These guys.
There's a reason Damian's on the cover of 2K for this year, right?
you don't sign Brad Beal thinking you just got your franchise best ever player. That's not what you're just saying. This is a perennial elite scorer.
Would you say it's almost like bringing Vince Carter over? Full circle?
No, bring it over like a nice guy as Vince Carter. But no, like man, I don't know. It's interesting, and the more we can talk about Philly too, how interesting that could make everything.
This is a make or break 2 or 3 months for them.
But we're talking about guys moving around. Bradley Beal is, dude, Ben Simmons could be on the move in months. That to me, like, again, not a 3-point shooter, but someone that can guard every position, someone that can play make, get to the rim undeniably, average triple doubles.
You can't tell me that if things go haywire in Philly, that LeBron is not knocking on the Sixers' door. He's a clutch athlete, right? So he's under the same agency, just like AD as well. And that's one of the reasons we were able to pull him over, right?
And I think that's. And
we should not forget that Trae Young just recently signed with Clutch as well. I saw that
too.
Yeah.
And I thought Trae Young, I think, was like, this is a backup plan.
Yeah, the only thing is he's glued to the Hawks for the next 3 years, right?
I think he's a committed Hawk, right. But he's like, once I go here, at the end of the day, like if someone doesn't want to pay me or something, like I can just hop on Braun's squad. You know what I mean?
Well, it might not Braun, but AD, right? So that's a great point as well.
Man, it's interesting. In this day and age with all these contracts and how easy it is now to move a guy. How easy it is, no matter how big the contract is. There's buyers, man. Yeah. We're in a buying and selling market every year.
Well, and we're also in a player-driven league now, right? Where they dictate where they want to go. And, it's funny, the decision was up the other day, the anniversary of it. And that started that whole player empower movement and being able to, decide where you want to go and where you want to finish your career.
Looking back on it, how do you feel about that?
I think it was great. Like I think it's great because what it eventually did for players and their ability to control what they want to do. Obviously, the idea of a TV show and all that was pretty stupid on his part. But for him to,
but why was it stupid? Because this is where I'm missing the.
Because I think it's what you did to Cleveland to do it on public TV. Like you basically broke up. It was The Bachelor, right? You broke up with this team that's admired you and done so much for you over the course of how many years, made you this, god in Cleveland. And then you went on national TV, dragged it out for an entire hour because he had a conversation with Jim Gray for that long. And then he said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. This is the way he did it.
But charity got a lot of money from this.
And there was a lot of benefits to that, right? Like the ESPN got tons of ratings, right? There was a lot of money raised. It was just in the fashion that it was done, right?
I see it. I get it. But to me, he was a free agent.
Yeah.
So you didn't owe Cleveland anything at that point. In my opinion, you've never owed Cleveland anything.
Right.
But no, I look back on it and think it was a good move for, one, the fact you take an advantage of just making a point of nothing and turn it into money for charity. I'm always going to be down for that. And the player empowerment thing as well, I believe. And I think maybe even I'm speaking to a larger point, and maybe that did start this whole kind of like, these guys all look out for themselves.
There's so many levels to it because it was Rich Paul and his other guy that organized the show. They picked the host, right? They said, this is how we're going to do it. This is the questions you're going to ask. That's when it really became, the power was in the players' hands and the agency's hands, right? And that now you see that on the forefront, right? With the players having their own platforms, their own channels, like KD with his own channels, productions, all that sort of, that was the trickle down effect to it. Right. And for LeBron, he was lucky that Dan Gilbert sounded like an idiot after in the Comic Sans letter, right? If that didn't happen, then we'd all have been about LeBron. But the fact that Dan Gilbert looked like an idiot after it as well also showed sort of that, I hate to use the word slavery, but that mentality that you work for me, you are my player, right?
100%.
So I definitely did that. My last lose is more player driven. So Brandon Ingram is playing for a contract this year. So if he gets hurt, right, that he has much to lose from that. But he could also have a great March Madness sort of style tournament and raise his stock. And then you're talking about the 2017 draft class. So you have Mitchell, Tatum, Fox, and Bam, who are online for contract extensions. And I don't know if you remember, but a couple of weeks ago they pushed for this insurance policy to back them up because they're going into these contract years should they get hurt. So there's a lot of players that have a lot at stake playing this shortened season.
And obviously personally, but my favorite, my most intrigued by this is I want to see where Tatum's at when we get back. I would love nothing more than have heard that he was just locked in Boston's gym for 5 months. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if you've seen his hairstyle, but it seems that way. I'm not feeling it, Tatum.
No. It's going to be interesting to see these guys, man, because this is kind of it's interesting. You can't really identify a certain year, but I would say that right now is kind of that changing of the guard process, right? You've seen these
We're seeing the NFL with Patrick Mahomes, and we're kind of seeing in the NBA as well.
Zion, Luka Doncic, these guys that are have a ton of their career left, are really starting to flourish.
Right.
And I think this is something that no one has ever been through. And this is a very incredible challenge for a guy that's not 29 or not 35. I think for these 24 to 8-year-olds, it's going to be weird, man.
And I don't know if we've had this conversation on the podcast, but You don't believe these are asterisk like this is an asterisk season, right?
I don't believe it, but it does depend on your perspective. Because I think, because again, I don't believe it's an asterisk, but did I have two different winners now based on each part of course, yes, definitely. So there's things have changed, but also, I don't know, at what point you want to just shut the fuck up and play?
Right.
Like, I think that's kind of the...
Right. I think it's not because the circumstances and the environment that everybody's going to be playing is in the same. Like, no team has an advantage. But it does suck that the teams that played for an advantage now lose that, and that being home court, right? So in that sense, it's an asterisk, but at the same time, everyone's super healthy. Everyone's had the time off, right? And depending on how you use that time, that's on you.
And I think, you know, you talk about asterisks like that, then I'm not one to put an asterisk on the Raptors title, but wouldn't that be more of an asterisk?
Right. No KD, no Clay.
Right.
Exactly.
That to me is more of an asterisk, where this is a shitty situation, but hey, everyone dealt with it. So let's see a winner.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's all I have. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add in terms of teams to gain and lose just based on conversation, but I'm 3 more weeks, man. I
mean, teams to lose, Philly is got to be that forefront of my mind, just because you have so many pieces on that could blow up,
right?
You know, and honestly, to me as well, it's kind of Brooklyn.
Yeah, to lose or they have the most to gain, right? Because they're literally going with no roster.
Yeah, but I don't know, like, what's this vibe with Brooklyn right now? And especially after all of this, Kyrie's a guy, man, that is much more toward change than a care about his own career. And I'm just saying that there's some other aspects from here that this experience could definitely alter to there.
I think culturally, it's an interesting conversation that you have KD, Kyrie, DeAndre, Wilson Chandler, guys that don't want to suit up.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Like, what does that say about your leaders,
is what I mean,
right?
Man. I don't know if I like what I'm seeing out of Brooklyn right now.
Right. And you're a Kyrie guy, so I'm sure that's not easy for you to say, right?
I know, but again, with this time and in this time of the world, we already know he's not going to play as long as he can. I don't think this guy has 5 more years left. I think he has 2. And I think
and he's been under the knife a lot, right? So,
and with these components of now you're having these like more social figures or other alternate routes, I see him going as a speaker somewhere, you know, before I see him playing 4 more years in the NBA.
Right.
So I don't know. This is interesting. I would have liked to have also, again, I get it, but I would have liked to have also seen a little bit of fucking cojones from both those guys and being like, hey, we have 5 months off. Like, when were you supposed to be ready? I was supposed to be ready in like a month. Okay, I was supposed to be ready in 2 weeks. Let's make an actual assessment of this for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
See where we're at. If we're not comfortable, don't play. Don't get me wrong. But I don't even think these guys even thought about it.
Yeah. No, they're too busy trying to organize their own.
This is what I mean, and I don't like that.
It's trying to start their own anti-NBA, right? Again, July 30th is the date, and time is flying by. Like I said, teams start flying in the next couple of days. And I'm sure we'll get a better idea if this idea is going to work or not. Did you see the ring that Serge Ibaka showed on social? So he showed the coronavirus ring, and it's kind of cool. It's got all these LED lights in the middle, and within 8 feet, you were able to tell if you are in jeopardy or not. So within 8 feet, yeah. You can see in my eyes. I don't believe any of this, right? I can see. Yeah, they can't see it, but I can. Like. It's a plastic ring, and it's got 88% accuracy or something like that. You check it out when you get a chance. It's a really interesting piece of technology. So, I do want to quickly bring up, because we talk about basketball, and I obviously am a little biased because I'm involved with the league, but I'm really excited that the CEBL is going to be starting up on July 25th. And there's some very interesting news today, I believe. Yeah, so they've announced that they are going to have a fourth quarter style very similar to what we saw in the NBA All-Star Game. So what you're going to see is these games are going to come down to the final basket. And as you can imagine, as a media guy, like, that just makes great content for me. But you can stream all these games on CBC. There's a couple of nationally televised games on the weekend. But I think that the league is doing a great job trying to build some enticement and hype. All the power to you guys. Fucking rights. You're the first team to do something fucking different. Right. And try something out. Right. You're the first league to try something. Yes. We all know this is fucked. Try something, man. This is a great idea. And this is the perfect time to try something new, right? I love this idea. Right. You already know your ratings aren't going to be great anyways. I understand that. That's fine. We're trying to grow the game of basketball in Canada. Yeah. You're going to finish every game on a bucket now. Right. Dude, that's... Come on. You know what I love is, somebody mentioned the other day, like, are you concerned that the NBA is coming out at the same time? The CEBL has a 5-day window to try to prove to fans like this is going to be exciting basketball. And when you have that rule and stipulation, you can't tell me within those 5 games you're not going to be like, oh, this is pretty damn cool. Man, I mean, personally, you and I covered a couple college games and went down to last bucket. Dude, that shit was crazy. Right.
Like that was one of the more fun experiences that we've been involved in, right?
Yeah.
And man, like you don't have to look too far to find good sports. This is incredible basketball.
Yeah, no, and the names and the people that they're slowly starting to get involved with the league is just really, really promising. And I feel privileged and lucky to be kind of on the ground floor. So I'm really, really excited about that as well.
An amazing experience for you, and you're very deserving of that.
I appreciate that.
But so 4 minutes left in the fourth.
Yes,
and they're gonna go 9 points up.
Yes, 8 points up.
8 points up.
8 points up. Right?
I love that, man.
Right, and then it can't end on a free throw either. Obviously, they kind of fucked up on that, but they didn't think about that.
Timeout rules and such, have they changed?
That I don't know. Right. So that
I'd imagine you would see less timeouts with this as well. Much more flow of the game.
The purpose of this is not to drag these games out because you may lose people if you go into overtime, double overtime, all that sort of. It's just like, let's put a cap on these games. They're going to end within an hour 20 minutes, right? And that will entice people to say, like, I've got a window to watch this basketball and I don't have to dedicate my entire time to it.
100%. So, I'm excited to check that out. That's
it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so any plans for the rest of the weekend?
Nope.
No?
Hanging out.
I was going to say, just continue to work on the color.
Yeah, tan a lot.
James is a lot darker than he was when I'm
darker than D, actually.
What are you trying to say? That I'm not spending enough time outside? Anyways, folks, thanks for joining us. Another fun episode. We'll be back next week, and I'm sure we'll probably deep dive into this contract and see where it lands. I don't know if you've been hitting refresh. I don't know if we have a number at this point. That was the hope and the goal, but... yeah, it doesn't look like that we know how much this contract is worth. Yeah, no, Cousin Sal, no reports yet. But yeah, everyone wants to know. Schefter just said the more significant question is how much over 400 million. So I guess at this point, it's a no-brainer that it's going to be in that number.
It is solidified that it's over $400 million. We just don't know how much more over.
Yeah, so Schefter just said 2 years and 27.6 million left. So he's still getting the money that he's supposed to get, and then some more, right?
Yes.
So the lowest his 12-year deal could be worth is $427.6 million. That is insane.
But it will be more.
It will
He says
the lowest. That's the lowest. Oh my god. Okay, yeah.
It will be more.
We need some time to digest and consume that. Congratulations, Patrick Mahomes. Share some money this way. Invest in us. We'll call it the P-Tails podcast if we have to.
Yo, I'll call it whatever you want, bro. I don't give a fuck.
Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. As always, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube's been really popular lately. We appreciate you guys. I've been getting a lot of feedback in the last couple of days about the podcast too, and a lot of people had input, as you can imagine, about the Vince Carter. So
hey man, I love you. Should have. We love
hearing it. Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. So thanks for your feedback. Thanks for reaching out, and as always, we will see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your week.
You as well. Thank you.